Good morning and welcome to the National Nursing Research Webinar by New Delta Nursing Society. My name is Dr. Faye Felicilda and I'll be your host and moderator for today. I am very honored to be facilitating today's webinar. As stated by Sir Jerome, I am currently working here in Honolulu, Hawaii, but I will soon be going back to the motherland in January. So before we go further, I do want to review the functionality of a Zoom platform that we are using for today's webinar. Your active participation is very important throughout this session. Right now, I have everyone on mute to avoid background noises that may distract you from listening to the webinar. Throughout the presentation, someone on staff will be helping me to manage the chat functionality so that we can be able to monitor any questions you may have for all presenters. So we have a chat box where you can be able to enter your questions and comments throughout the presentation. However, we will be answering, the presenters will be answering your questions at the very end of their presentation. If you would rather ask a question in person, you can also use the raise your hand icon in the control panel. That will indicate to us that you have a question or a comment. Once you've raised your hand, we will acknowledge you and you can unmute your line so that you can ask your question. So without further ado, we are going to start our nursing research webinar. Nursing research is critical to the nursing profession and is necessary for continuing advancements that promote optimal nursing care. Thus, as part of addressing its mission, Bethany Delta Nursing Society is organizing the first National Nursing Research Webinar. And this webinar provides an opportunity for Filipino nurses to build relationships and to disseminate their nursing and health-related knowledge. Please note that this webinar will be recorded and will be uploaded on YouTube as well as shared on social media platforms. The theme for our inaugural webinar is Advancing Nursing Research in the Philippines. And the learning outcomes for this webinar are to exchange novel scientific ideas to support the generation of nursing research, describe how nursing research can influence the overall health of the country, discuss innovative strategies for nursing research in the country. For presenters, we're going to start with Dr. Richard Allen Sullivan. Dr. Sullivan is an instructor of Central Mindanao University College of Nursing. He completed his Doctor of Philosophy in Nursing from Silliman University, Dumaguete, and he also gained his Master of Science in Nursing from St. Paul University, Dumaguete. Currently, he is teaching medical surgical nursing and at the same time, the research coordinator of the College of Nursing. This presentation is on Voices of Grit, experiences of nurses working long-term in Philippine hospitals. Dr. Sullivan, we are very excited to hear from you.
Thank you so much for the introduction, Dr. Faye. Thank you for the opportunity for inviting me to speak in behalf of Bethany Delta Nursing Society. So I would now share I would now start my presentation. So this is my dissertation or research when it comes to in Silliman University. So this is entitled Voices of Grit, Experience of Nurses Working on Long-Term in Philippine Hospitals. Grit in nursing profession is a phenomenon which wasn't explored, and the portrayal of the phenomenon where grit among nurses exists while they stayed and endured long-term in the work environment is ought to be understood as essential nursing knowledge. There are many versions of definition of grit from different scholarly authors. However, the definition of Duckworth, Peterson, and Matthew and Kelly was considered in this particular research. So grit is defined as perseverance and passion for long-term goals. So also grit has been also found to envisage success over beyond measures of talent. It is a fact that there are salvos of everyday challenges to nurses within the healthcare environment. Nurses struggle to anticipate making the life of patients as safe as possible, and at the same time, they also try to improve themselves. Based on the definition, the development of the construct of grit may suggest a link to nursing practice. My reflection as a nurse encounters during the work environment is based on um, on the my experiences in the struggles of nurses in the front line, where they endure and persevere in the daily challenges within the work environment. So I have been once a staff nurse in both private and public hospitals, and I found these issues involve low wages, increased work dissatisfaction, moral distress, nurse shortage, and burnouts. So basically, nurses are vulnerable to push and pull factors according to Liu et al. And the is causing job-related burnout and dissatisfaction. So they usually decide to go abroad away for a different career path. Now, the high turnovers of nurses will result to brain drain and nurse shortage. And as you can see, the lesser experience of the nurse, the more risk of to patient safety. So, however, most solutions are tied up to a limited budget, especially in the Philippines, and are only in financially available yearly. So, within my literature search, um, usually the literature says that uh, our nations are researching, other nations are researching how to keep Filipinos nursing from staying in their migrated country. But however, we lack the researches locally about the nurses' intent to stay here in the Philippines. Statistics shows that globally, the nurse shortage is already considered as a deficit. No, U.S. projects its nurses deficit in 2030 by a million nurse, while the Philippine Statistics Authority claims that there are already 46% increase in human health workers, about 13 vacancies locally from January to 2016. But however, it still recognizes that there is a surplus of nurses rather than shortage. So basically, this reality says otherwise. Now, um, if there are nurses going abroad, my question is there are also those who remain. So this particular idea was conceptualized to formulate my problem. So what are the stories about grit among nurses who stayed and endured for long term within the Philippine hospitals? Specifically, it sought to answer the questions, what are the nurses' stories about grit, and the stories of grit among nurses who stayed and endured for long term within the work environment in the Philippine hospitals. And what do the nurses' stories in their past, present, future reveal about grit? And how might the understanding about grit work environment influence and enlighten our perspective of grit? So my research study is a pure qualitative research design um, involving a narrative inquiry, specifically a visually based narrative inquiry or photo voice. So the participants are staff nurses or primary nurses with at least 10 years of hospital experience, and 11 participants were selected in my study location, which is in Valencia City and Maramag, Bukidnon. Um, these are hospitals which are accredited by the DOH and are tertiary and secondary hospitals and private and government. My methods include application of Dewey's three-dimensional approach and the theoretical lens of Rosemary Parr's theory of human becoming. Um, In the data generation procedure, of course, we negotiated the entry. Um, we made ethical clearance approved transmittals, 11. Then narrative interview of the or face-to-face interview was done, and storytelling and restorytelling was also implemented, and informant photo sharing sessions involving immersions and observation, photo documentation, and field notes. Audio recording, verbatims, and photos and field notes were imported to in vivo 12 plus for data management. Uh, in in the analysis, we read and reread the experiential text and coded these stories. We are not getting significant statements, but we are coding whole stories of the narratives of the respondents. So queries and analysis reflected or conveyed stories and explain them and also to clarify them if um, there are inconsistencies when it comes to the narratives. Also, I conducted revisits and immersion. So, in writing the narratives, I ascertained the stories are relevant to the research question, finalization of the stories of grit in 3 dimension, and describing the experience of grit. Okay, the finding of the research involves a lot of story patterns, no, which is um, basically focused into these 4 story patterns. So commitment to and loyalty to family, challenges in the field, commitment to organization, and collegial cohesiveness. As you can see here in the left side graphics, much of the stories involve challenges in the field, while other patterns, um, also half of it are more on commitments to the organization, family, and collegial cohesiveness. In the commitment to family, sub-themes involve reasons for staying in the family. A family should stay together, familial influence, social responsibility, and family relation. The pictures you see are the pictures shared during the photo sessions. You can see them that nurses are considered that family is home, and this is very important for to them. Well, basically, they consider this as everything about their work is all connected to family. Their decision, regardless of the challenges they face, just to secure their family and for the comfort of the family and to oversee their family and to see their family together. And it is deeply rooted within the informant's culture that this becomes their primary reason why they stayed and endured. When it comes to challenges in the field, most as you see the graphics previously on the analysis, that half of the stories are mainly are challenges in the field. So as you can see in the pictures in the photo sharing session, also in the observations, that as you can see there are overwhelming number of patients. This in the left side, lower left picture, you can see that there are already patients um, basically in the corridors of the hospitals, no? And you can see that this particular one bed, there are 3 patients already, 1, 2, and 3. So confined in one bed. That's how many patients the nurses are encountering every day. You can see in the right lower left also, you can see that there are 102 patients received that day. So you can just imagine a nurse receiving these 102 patients in just one ward. So this is how the patient's ratio are really, the patient can really struggle. Um, in this particular picture, you can see a supervisor um, covering for her staff because of nurse shortage. And also, you can see in this picture on the upper right, the pool of medications wherein anything can go wrong anytime. These are the challenges nurses face every day, and a lot of them are really overwhelming. Okay, but however, the respondents see this as their struggles, their adversities, their frustration and sacrifices. However, they are optimized. They seem to have optimism when it comes to their narratives, and they downplay it with they downplay the negativity of it. They actually even have accept this as openness to opportunities, and also an openness for the need for improvement. Another would be commitment of the organization sub-teams, include work considers family. Bunot, wherein this means that providing financial aid out of their own pocket, is it a social responsibility or sacrifice? Benefits and subsidies, loyalty to the institution, and they can see Jesus through their care. So these pictures are also shared during photo sharing sessions. Um, this particular document, the institution vouched for the hospitalization of one particular nurse, basically zeroing the bill of that particular nurse. So if this can happen, why other hospitals do not impose this? Like this particular hospital that I have interviewed, they are imposing this, or they are actually doing this already. And institutionally, you can see that how religious they are, and how they value Jesus in their care. Um, they also basically know this particular pattern that informants believe that they are attached to the organization, a sense of informant way, wanting to stay and continuing to stay within the institution because of benefits, core values, political attachments, and a sense of obligation to the informant. Of course, no, there is also collegial cohesiveness, just like Ate Kuya's narrative about respect to seniors, the difference, camaraderie, and relating to millennials. So they see it as an existing bond between employees in the field. Same as true with other patterns, they coexist within the narratives. This is about respect to seniors, their collegial experience, and collegial feuds and millennials. Now, in the second part of the analysis, I already summarized their characteristics. As you can see, the research question involved um, looking into the past, their present, and their future. You can see that if you look into my narratives, you can see how detailed it was, and I can really summarize all the description or the characteristics of their narrative. So when it comes to time boundary, estimated of this half cup empty, or would be estimated about 1 to 5 years of profession. Their focus of decision fulfillment of self, professional fulfillment, needing to prove something, trying to ideal set up, trying what is it like to go abroad, financial reasons, altruism, challenges to work. Their core influence, however, is really interesting because their decisions involve parents, aunts, uncles, in-laws, and last consideration with yourself. So the decision point whether to go abroad or not, most likely they would go abroad within this particular number of years in the profession. So their future outlook involves working abroad, good salary compensation, and family security. The second the second stage would be more on the settling down and fitting in. This is more approximately about 6 to 15 years in the profession. So their focus of decision is more on self-directed to the family and financial reasons. Their core influences would be now shifted from parents to aunties to children, husbands, and institutional beliefs. Most likely they would stay up. Most likely they would stay, but open to opportunities. Their future outlook, family security and comfort, but lesser need for work abroad, or still they are open to opportunities. And lastly, those who are having an professional experience of approximately 16 and above in the profession, their focus of decision is already fulfilled and filled with contentment, with old age and experience. They are now the ones who influence, and their decision point is always within my respondents' narratives. They always say that they would stay, and their future outlook is more on waiting for retirement and pension. The final output of my research is more on the nurses grit model. So as you can see, um, the model is portrays a nurse's way of adapting to the ultimate realities of nurse work environment through grit. Gritty nurses demonstrate a way of encompassing and withstanding continuous adapting to the challenges of work environment because of their love for their family, work, and colleagues. The nurse's way of realizing interconnected commitment to family, friends, and work in adapting to the challenges of the nurse work environment, like the nature of all life. The concept and structure of the model, where the nurse grit model is composed of three main components, which are the motivators of grit, the life stages of grit, and the situation of grit. So, as many authors would say, that experience is the best teacher. Like Dewey said, who relates knowledge from experience must relate back to experience. Moreover, Pars believes that multidimensional realities interrelate within the patterns becomes distinguishable as a manifestation of the human universe interrelationship. And it is inherent in aspects and everyday experience of it, from the initial analysis of the story patterns to the second level and to the third level. The challenges and commitment to the family, friends, and organization is evident. In summary, the proponent of this study formulated this particular nurse's grit model. The model depicts a holistic experience of the nurse who stayed for long in the Philippine work environment. The dynamics involved within the grit experience are realities of the nurse work environment and motivation for their decision to stay. The three horizontal white box, depicts the life stages of the nurse professional career, while the four solid blue semicircles portray their semicircles are the motivators of grit, connected with the continuous solid line to portray their non-directional interconnectedness, by which one cannot coexist without the other. While the overlay blue directional figure, the cross directional figure, represent the vertical and horizontal associations within the life stages and the motivators. The motivators are drivers of the nurse of their passion and perseverance, and its impact affect the intent or decision to stay. Their downward and upward path. Their decision to stay is the downward arrow, and to leave abroad is an upward arrow. Okay. Conclusion. In conclusion, motivation and challenges occur in any life stages event in nurses. However, there is a notion that grit can be observed in all areas of the timeline with different human characteristics. These assumptions are the stories of informant past, present, and future reveal that the grit exists whether you decide to go abroad and to remain in the Philippines. The story patterns reveal that the association interconnected within the common thread, which is grit experience among nurses, and the four patterns: commitment, family, and commitment to the organization, collegial cohesiveness, challenges in the field, in perspective within the stages on the life cycle of grit. So, implication for practice upon understanding that the commitment to the family as their primary reasons why they stay, it should be appropriate to encourage policymakers to formulate family-centered policies that encourages nurses to stay. Understanding the commitment to organization policy would mean that benefits for the nurse employees and to provide policies to ensure clear progression on the nurse professional advancement to that to that prevent contractualization, and also to improve work conditions of the nurses, follow standard nurses patients ratio, and strategize team building activities. Implication for research: exploring other methodological approach should be worthy of consideration. Since this is already a qualitative study, I would suggest that to research this particular aspect in relation to mixed methods or longitudinal research studies, correlation studies, and of course, grounded theory. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sullivan. So we will continue on with our second presentation before we ask any questions of Dr. Sullivan. So for our second presentation, our speaker is Dr. Joel Ray Acob. He is a faculty of Visayas State University, and he finished his PhD in nursing science from St. Paul University, Philippines in Tuguegarao. His presentation is on the validation of an assessment tool for elderly abuse. We're very much excited to hear your presentation, Dr. Acob.
The reliability of the developed elderly abuse assessment. It is important to study about elderly care and elderly abuse to more focus on the elderly abuse, since it is of general knowledge that aging is rapidly increasing in the Philippines, and this is not just an issue in our local but even in a global perspective or in a greater lens. So, as I said, aging is rapidly increasing, and the World Health Organization in 2015 made mention that by 2050, the population all throughout the globe with respect to elderly will reach into as high as 1.9 billion. And amid the anecdotal reports or hearsay, should I say, on the elderly abuse in the country, still the problem continues since we lack a comprehensive assessment tool or equipment, should I say, to report and validate and document the said phenomenon. The aim of this manuscript is simply to validate the developed tool and to know the attributes of the tool with respect to its validity and reliability. Moreover, the purpose would be to identify the underlying structures or the construct of the tool, as well as to design a scoring scheme that is tailored fit on the developed assessment tool. With regards to the methodology, the researcher actually conducted firstly a qualitative study that was presented in Indonesia and was published by the Public Health of Indonesia in 2017 about the experiences and the coping strategies of the abused elderly. From that qualitative study, emergent themes and significant statements were then retrieved so as to come up with a development of a tool subject for validation. Then a validation process, the reliability tests were conducted, and the version of an elderly abuse assessment tool was developed. So based on the results or what has been found after the methodology, with respect to validity and reliability of the tool, the elderly abuse assessment tool has undergone validation and reliability tests, and the tool is clear in terms of the word consumption and is easily being understood And the expert panel, actually, there were 5 members of the panel with mention on the relevance and comprehensive as its major feature of the tool. The tool has ICVI of 0.84 and is increasing its value to its second version with 42 items. The convex alpha of the said CAAT is 0.974 during the second version. So I want actions based on the comments and expert comments of our panel. And with revisions. And again, as you can see, the convex alpha is 0.974 on the second version. That's for the validity and reliability. With regards to the construct identified from the validated tool, it revealed that there were 6 factors that can be extracted. However, with the use of free plot, only 2 factors can be named. So between 2 and 6 factors, the proponent chose to identify 2 names, and these were psychosexual and psychofinancial factors, respectively. So these are the 2 constructs of the validated tool. With respect to the design scoring scheme of the tool, okay, with respect to the design scoring scheme of the tool, when the participants, after utilizing the tool, will have a score of 42 and below, it can be interpreted as prone to be abused. 43 to 84 is moderately abused, and 85 and above means severely abused. The highest possible score of this CAAT is 126, and the lowest possible is 42. Based from the study, it is hereby recommended that since this is the first Filipino-based elderly abuse assessment tool, we need to utilize the tool to home care settings and hospitals and other institutions to early detect the presence of abuse occurring among elderly populations. Since the proponent is consistent that abuse of any kind is not a disease, but is a phenomenon that needs to be prevented as long as an abuse assessment tool is developed. Policymakers should also revisit the existing guidelines and laws with respect to elderly care and welfare. Based from the literature, integrative and systematic review, there were only 9 available tools to assess abuse globally, and none of which from the Philippine setting. So first setting. For future endeavor, for proponent recommending or should utilize this among population and to consider the topic on how does it like to care for elderly abuse patients and to identify the state of elderly in the community using the developed tool and incorporating our CAAT during admission and or nursing assessment for elderly care. Since abuse is unreported and undetected, we can only identify as such in find in the hospital. So why not include this AAT during admission or during stay? That's all for the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jacob. So now I would like to introduce our panel reactors for today's webinar. So our panel reactors are Jerome Babate, the president of Bethany Delta Nursing Society, Maela Babate, nurse, Prince of Wales Hospital, Sydney, Australia.
Coming up with a timely study. It was a qualitative study. So I remembered I also made one in my PhD, but it's a descriptive relational entitled stress stress management and performance of faculty members of the College of Nursing in Panay, Philippines. Okay, I would like to make a reaction or a sharing. Indeed, work environment has been described as an important factor for the job satisfaction of nurses and their quality of service provided. Actually, there was a study, a cross-sectional design to describe work environment variables of Filipino nurses, determine the degree of nurses' job satisfaction, and determine the intention to remain in their present work environment. So this study discovered that the lowest positive responses were physiologic and safety needs. But despite of this, nurses reported high job satisfaction and the intent to remain in their present environment. So in other words, we have that commitment, no? The loyalty to our profession. And this, we have pledged this. So what we need now is, what is this? Support from the institution, especially from the government. Kaya kailangan ipatupad na nila salary para hindi na mag-alisa ng yung mga nurses. Di ba?
That's correct, sir. Actually, when I conceptualize this research, I am really sad when it comes to when I search for literature. Not much has been said when it comes to like staying or like, for example, reason for them to stay, or like promoting them, or like researching reason, or like things to, let's say, to improve just for our nurses to stay. However, I did some I did look upon some, or I encountered some literature of other nations researching on how to let us stay our nurses abroad, um, uh, to make us stay in their migrated countries, because actually Filipino nurses are really sought after by the global community because of our
Yes, sir.
commitment to our work. And sadly, our local researchers, they do not, or probably not much have been said when it comes to visibility of literature. That's why I intended to make this research as visible as possible, so that politician, when it comes to policy, when they do, if they do not have anything to support it with, usually they cannot see it as a possible policy improvement. So as much as possible, we need to visible, or by our work, and it comes to research and research dissemination, we need to disseminate this information so that they can have a basis for policy briefs or policy improvement.
All right.
Okay, thank you very much. So we'll go on with our next panel reactor, Jerome Babate.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, can you hear me, Dr. Faye?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. This is just a rejoinder on the two presenters. One in particular, Dr. Sullivan's research work is actually groundbreaking, I would say, from the Philippine perspective, because you know, this has become an issue right now. I mean, a few days ago, this issue on teacher and student problem in the Philippines public school has become a national story. But yeah, this relates to somehow an issue on grit. Okay, and I think in order to build character and grit in our students, in particular, and nursing students, it is essential also to develop a school culture that emphasizes character and grit. Okay, many times I think a character education program is implemented on top of the existing school culture, but nevertheless, copying and pasting a program is not likely to be successful in this instance. Now, what I'm saying is that we need to develop this as part of our nursing curriculum. Okay. Sorry. The second thing is on about Dr. Akob's presentation. Dr. Akob's presentation on elder abuse tool, that is also groundbreaking. Okay, I have never encountered that kind of research instrument specifically for the Filipinos or in the Philippine setting. Okay, so basically the abuse of older people in our communities is a serious and under-detected problem. Okay, this was already presented by Dr. Ako. In its various forms, emotional, financial, physical, sexual, neglect, abuse has profound individual and social impact. So depriving older people of their assets and increasing the risk of injury, hospital admission, placement, and premature mortality. Okay. In this case, Filipino nurses have a pivotal role in screening, assessment, and management. Okay, so for both of you guys, congratulations for embarking on this groundbreaking research.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very
Mr.
much,
John.
Doc.
We will continue with our next panel reactor, Dr. Merle Salvani. Let's unmute Dr. Salvani.
Yeah.
Hello, good morning, everyone. Good morning
Morning.
from Manila, Philippines. I am Dr. Merle Salvani again, the immediate past National President of the Philippine Nurses Association. Firstly, I would like to thank Mr. Jerome for inviting me to be a panel reactor of this very noble initiative of the first National Nursing webinar. Of course, we know for a fact that research is very important in nursing. For one, it could really improve our practice. But of course, research will be nothing if we only conduct it, okay? Because as researchers, we have a responsibility to publish, to share results of our study so that other nurses could utilize in order to improve our nursing practice. So again, I would like to congratulate Mr. Jerome for initiating this very noble initiative.
Thank you.
Secondly, I would like to congratulate our two presenters, Dr. Sullivan and Dr. Akub, for conducting scholarly studies that are very relevant today to nursing. For one, for Dr. Sullivan, your study is very timely. Recently, we have heard that the pressing issue surrounding our nursing community, it's about nursing shortage, nursing in the Philippines. Now we clamor that indeed there is shortage in our country, but in your study you mentioned that in reality there is a surplus. So where is the shortage coming in from? And of course, you highlighted in your study that there are still nurses who would like to stay here in our country to serve our fellow men, and that is very noble. Okay, so in terms of shortage of nurses, I would like you, okay, that your study will be published. Okay, we have in the Philippines, our Philippine Journal of Nursing, the official publication of the Philippine Nurses Association. Please publish that so that all nurses will be aware of the result of your study. It is really worth knowing that there are still many nurses who would like to stay here in the Philippines, provided what they want is, of course, a very stable job here, okay? A job that offers them positive work environment, a job that offers them just and fair salary. So recently, we also have seen in television that the Philippine Nurses Association, together with the other organizations, really have worked hard, really have put effort in really lobbying from our government to really implement salary grade 15 so that our government nurses especially could really enjoy what is really stipulated in the law RA 9173. And of course, there is also a condition there that once it is implemented, for the private nurses also, for the nurses who are working in the private hospitals, their salary also will be upgraded. It will also be worked out. So again, congratulations, Dr. Sullivan. And also, I am really impressed with the nurse grid model that you created out of the result of your study. Please share, publish it, especially at the Philippine Journal of Nursing. Now, the second for Dr. Akob, congratulations also for conducting a scholarly study about the elderly. Yes, in the Philippines, we really need more studies to study the plight and, of course, the condition of our elderly. So this is one area that we really need more studies. So again, please publish your study so that nurses, many nurses will know about it, and they will also be inspired to conduct more researches as you have recommended in your study. So please do that because your study will be without value unless you share it for others to utilize the goodness of the result of your study. So congratulations to both of you, and of course to Mr. Jerome for inviting me here to be your panel reactor. So I hope this will not be the first and the last, that this initiative will come, and of course invite more of our fellow nurses to join. Congratulations again and good day to all.
Thank you very much, Dr. Salvani. We'll continue on with our next panel reactor, Marky Legaspi. Who is an instructor from West Visayas State University. Mr. Legaspi. While waiting for Mr. Legaspi, let's continue on with our next panel reactor. Mrs. Mena Babate, could you provide to us your reaction regarding the presentations? Could we unmute Ms. Maela Babate, please?
Yes, Dr. Faye. Hello. Oh,
Um, um,
Yes.
Seems like we're having audio technical problems with Mr. Legaspi.
Yes.
Um, is Mama Ella ready for her reaction?
Uh, she's not yet ready. She's not yet ready. Maybe we can start with the Q&A, probably.
Yes. Do we have any questions for the presentation while we are waiting for our other panel reactors?
Okay, I'll throw the first question for Dr. Richard Sullivan. Would that be okay, Dr.
Yes,
Faye?
Doc. Okay.
Yes.
I I presume this is the pioneering work as far as nurse grit is concerned, isn't it, Dr. Richard?
Yes, Doc. This is a pioneer work.
All right, that's good. Yes, this one is becoming like a popular thing in the US right now, especially with Dr. Angela Duckworth's, a series of TEDx or TED Talks. Okay, so I'm glad that you have pursued this. So what's next for this?
Basically, I would just like to continue with regards to the reaction of Dr. Salvani. Actually, in my literature search, when it comes to the number of nurses in the country, literature says in the within the latest 2017, it is still considered as surplus. However, we know that it is not. The reality is not, because many of the hospitals are really on shortage, but some hospitals are in denial. They do not want that to announce that uh, they are having nurse shortage. But we, as an academician in the nursing profession, we can actually converse with many nursing administrators in affiliating hospitals. They are really asking for help. They are closing some of their departments because they do not have enough nurses to work. So basically, we already have a nursing shortage crisis, basically,
All right, okay.
because the situation is, the nurses are actually, if not going to abroad, they change in many career paths. Some of them I knew, they shifted to call centers because call centers offer 30,000 a month salary, while in the hospital, they usually give at least about 10 to 15,000 a month. So there's a really big difference when it comes to and if, as you can see, the nurse ratio is already crowded, or the hospitals are getting crowded because many nurses also are also going abroad. So basically, um, in my narratives, basically you can actually hear them, or you can actually say that, um, basically we need a policy wherein hospitals should offer, or even our policymakers should make it so, wherein the characteristic of the nurses leaving are because they are not satisfied when it comes to job related factors, such as salary, such as benefits. But if you put this in clarity when it comes to hiring them, I do think that they would not go to abroad if these are present. Like, for example, as simple as immediate benefit for the family. For example, free hospitalization for the family. If I am the nurse, if this is offered even for even if I have a low salary within that hospital, but my family would be free of hospitalization, that would be a very good um, uh, let's say initiation of of a hospital or a health institution. So this would basically secure my family. So like when going abroad, the reasons for going abroad are basically the same. Like we want to go to abroad because there are very good salaries there are very good, and we want to secure this financial. We want to secure this for our family as for financial security. So as a move, I want to visually represent my draft for the Philippine Journal of Nursing is already there. I am to submit
Yeah. Correct.
this December. So I hope that you would read this soon. I already contacted Dr. Palaganas that I will be submitting one article, and this is one of it.
All right, that's good. Thank you.
Yeah. So, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. I'll get back to you on that aspect, Dr. Sullivan.
Yeah.
I'll proceed. Okay, to Dr. Joel Akob, I think as I've said earlier, this is a pioneering work as well and a groundbreaking at that. This would represent an important toolkit for Filipino nurses actually, especially those who are working in the community health nursing. Do you think so, Dr. Akob? So again, what's next for this after embarking on your PhD, developing a new instrument? What's next?
Actually, this tool was already relayed to one of the municipality in Leyte, and they
All
were
right.
just spearheading the profiling of the elderly with respect to abuse cases in that particular province, utilizing that tool.
Oh wow,
Uh,
that's
that
good. Huh?
that would serve, yes, that would serve as our like the basic or the assessment as to what degree our elderly are experiencing in terms of neglected, maltreatment, and the like. Uh, while it is true that elderly case is undocumented, but this is not a good indicator of delivery of service. The more elderly experiencing the abuse, that would mean our healthcare provider and we nurses at that may or may not be doing perfectly the, the intended care for them. Though it is, on one hand, a fact that elderly is undocumented or unreported, but then again, here comes the assessment tool that could try to assess or aid us healthcare providers to early detect the said phenomenon. And we are still waiting for the collection of data, maybe 3 months after now, because we already drafted an agreement between that municipality.
All right, that's good. That's good to hear. Hopefully that can be expanded nationally. Thanks for that. Thanks, Dr. Akob and Dr. Sullivan.
Okay.
I think Dr. Silvani has something to say.
Yeah.
Dr. Faye?
Yes, we'll go on with Dr. Silvani.
Okay, I'll just add on to what Dr. Sullivan have said regarding the shortage of nurses in our country. Actually, it is one issue that is highly recognized by the International Council of Nurses. Last year, when we attended the Asia Workforce Forum at Hong Kong, sponsored by the ICN, ICN defines have identified that one of the major causes or factors of the shortage around the world for nurses is migration. And ICN has defined migration in two ways. One is those nurses who are working abroad, going abroad to work in other countries, and of course, those nurses who opted to stay in the country, but they work in non-nursing jobs, like what Dr. O'Sullivan have said, call centers, department stores, they become teachers, they work in the police department or fire department, okay? So non-nursing jobs at all. So I agree with you, Dr. O'Sullivan. Okay, keep up the good job. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Doc.
I do have a question for Dr. Ackle. So here in the US, we do have some elder abuse screening tools that are used in primary care settings, like in the clinic, to determine if an elderly is abused. So I guess my question would be, how different is the elderly abuse tool that we developed compared to the other screening tools that are internationally available?
Dr. Joel? Yep. Dr. Joel Jacob, sorry.
Okay.
Oh, what happened to, yep. Oh. Doctor, oh my goodness. We can't hear you, Dr. Joel Jacob.
Yes. Yes, Doc.
I think Dr. Pei has a question.
Yes, I hear you, Doctor. Yes. I heard her query, Dr. Rome.
Dr. Pei.
Oh,
Yes.
yes.
Were you
He asked
able
question.
I
to,
heard Dr. regards to her.
were you able to hear my question?
Yes, Dr. Faye. Okay. Yes, I heard that already, Dr. Faye. Thank you for that. Well, it is true that in a global perspective, there's a good number of elderly abuse cases. The elderly abuse assessment tool. But what made this tool unique from that of the other is this covers almost, the four aspects of holism, like the physical, sexual, the emotional, maltreatment, and neglect. Um, there are tools based on the literature search is more focused on a particular aspect, like just for financial, or the other would be for physical. But unlike with this EAAT, it covers all aspects of human perspective, and it already, it has a scoring scheme unique based on the tool, that after utilizing the tool, you may actually interpret based on the scores that can be obtained from the data collection from the respondents. And this is culture sensitive, since we know that Westerners are also having their own culture or their beliefs, and this tool is developed based from like a Filipino perspective. I think that would be one of the perks of, or the unique part of this tool.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jacob. So we're going to try again and see if Mr. Legaspi can be able to join us and provide his reaction regarding the presentation before we wrap up.
Dr. Legaspe, Marky Legaspe. He's not responding. He's not responding.
Okay, so I think at this point, unfortunately, Dr. Legaspi is unable to um, follow up on his audio technical difficulties. So we will do the wrap up at this time. Again, thank you very much, Dr. Sullivan and Dr. Adam, for your wonderful presentations. Um, it was a pleasure hearing about your research, and we did enjoy learning about your groundbreaking studies. So, do we have anything else, Mr. Babate? Do we have anything at this point that you want to cover before we wrap up?
I think we've covered basically major issues here on from given by our presenters. So thank you very much for that, Dr. Faye, for being a very good facilitator for this webinar.
So thank you so much, everybody. We appreciate you being here at this juncture. I would like to thank the Filipino Nursing Diaspora Network, Philippine Nursing Society, Nursing for Humanity, and all of our panel reactors who were able to join us today, and our presenters, as well as Dr. Brian Vasquez, who is our research director in the Philippine Nursing Society. I really enjoyed facilitating and hosting this webinar. Um, Thank you very much, and I hope that we can do this again in the near future.